Next on the news.
One of the Diocese of Brooklyn's own sworn in as an FDNY chaplain.
We are so united. We come together as a city.
I'm Jessica Easthope with his plans for serving New York's bravest and the city.
Then ridership is up on New York City subways, but a disturbing uptick in the number of people found dead in trains and stations has riders and city officials concerned. Plus, Ukraine on the brink. The country's leader now asking the U.S. for more help as the crisis drags on. And Pope Francis extends the Jubilee year of Guadalupe, hoping to re-energize the faithful after a pandemic-bruising year. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. Cheers and applause for the newest member of the FDNY. Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello is already the vicar for development in the Diocese of Brooklyn and involved in everything from futures in education to the new Emmaus Center. Now you can add FDNY chaplain to his long list of accomplishments. It was Commissioner Daniel Nigro's last official act. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has more.
Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello wears many hats, and now he has a new one. It's white and part of a deputy fire chief's uniform.
I, Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello.
Monsignor Jamie was sworn in Monday at FDNY headquarters as the newest chaplain for 17,000 of New York's bravest. A job he says at its core requires him to be exactly what he is, a priest.
Really, the most important things that I do are priestly things. Being there for people, ministering to them, especially during tragedy and suffering, and I always make time for that.
In recent weeks, the city has been in mourning after several tragic fires, including one in the Bronx that took the lives of 17 people. Every victim was part of the Muslim community. But Fire Commissioner Daniel Nigro says the Catholic Church showed its willingness and strength in reaching out to those of other faiths.
It didn't matter what the families were. Our Catholic chaplains were up there, local Catholic Church was there helping them until Wednesday.
With his retirement days away, Commissioner Nigro's last official act was bringing in Monsignor Jamie, someone he says will be a channel of peace for not only the members of the department, but their own families and the entire city.
Well, they're with us on our good days, and on our most dark days, they're with the families to tell them that God will remain with them, and I couldn't picture the department existing without chaplains.
Monsignor Jamie says in times when he's been there for members of the department, families and victims in an unofficial capacity, he's seen how God allows people to come together.
We're known to be right now a divided city, but when it comes to tragedy, we are so united. We come together as a city, and we come together as a church because we all believe in one God, and we let them know that they are not alone.
Monsignor Jamie now joins 7 other chaplains serving the department. In downtown Brooklyn, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
A rise in crime sweeping across the city has caused a church to make an unlikely move. On the Upper West Side, First Baptist Church on West 79th Street was forced to post a no trespassing sign across their entrance. This after a series of violent attacks occurred near the house of worship. And according to the neighborhood's block association, there has also been a homeless encampment near the steps, causing disruptions in front of the church entrance. Meanwhile, a homeless man is being charged with murder after allegedly following a woman home and stabbing her to death early Sunday morning. Police say the suspect stalked 35-year-old Christina Lee to her Chinatown apartment and pushed his way inside. That's when neighbors heard screaming and called 911. Police have also charged the suspect with burglary. He's had 8 prior arrests in New York City, but mostly for low-level subway offenses. Recently, he was released without bail in an assault case. Transit officials in New York are hoping a recent uptick in subway ridership is a sign that the city is bouncing back. But a startling number of New Yorkers were found dead in subway trains and stations so far this year. According to police records, at least 11 bodies were discovered in the subway since January. The NYPD also has reported 227 transit-related incidents in 2022, a stark increase compared to the 130 incidents seen this time last year. Also tonight, Europe on the brink.
A major military action could begin by Russia in Ukraine any day now.
The Pope leading St. Peter's Square in prayer.
Preghiamo in silenzio.
The latest on where things stand right now as Currents News covers the crisis in Ukraine. As tensions between Russia and Ukraine continue to escalate, Pope Francis is once again appealing to the consciences of politicians to seek peace.
Le notizie che giungono dall'Ucraina sono molto preoccupanti. Affido all'intercessione della Vergine Maria e alla coscienza dei responsabili politici ogni sforzo per la pace. Preghiamo in silenzio.
The Holy Father spoke one day after President Joe Biden told Russia's Vladimir Putin that the West would respond decisively to any invasion of Ukraine. But Moscow is holding strong and continues to deny any plans to invade. This as Russia has already amassed roughly 130,000 troops along its border with Ukraine. As John Lawrence reports, multiple countries are calling on their citizens to flee as a potential strike could be imminent.
6 months.
President Joe Biden spoke with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky Sunday, promising to respond swiftly and decisively if Russia takes further action against Ukraine.
An invasion could begin, a major military action could begin by Russia in Ukraine any day now. That includes this coming week before the end of the Olympics.
The talk with Zelensky comes one day after Biden warned Russian President Vladimir Putin in a phone call with swift and severe costs if Ukraine is invaded.
We are prepared with a package of potential economic consequences that will hit many of those oligarchs and make clear to Russia that there are real costs to pay for this.
Although preparations are underway, including the U.S. providing Ukraine with 180 tons of ammunition, the White House and some top lawmakers are hoping for a peaceful resolution.
The best thing that could happen is for us to pass a sanctions package, pre-invasion with a waiver, post-invasion sanctions that would destroy the ruble and cripple the Russian economy, so Putin could see it in writing. That might help him decide not to invade.
Some analysts say Putin could punish himself if he goes ahead with military action.
It might strengthen ties between Ukraine and the European Union. It also has created a stronger sense of Ukrainian national identity. And it's hard for me to see how that helps either Mr. Putin or Russia.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's government has reportedly banned Russian citizens from entering the country. Over the weekend, airlines began suspending flights to and from Ukraine until further notice. And officials are warning that the country may soon become a no-fly zone for all commercial flights. This as surrounding countries voice concerns over the potential danger in Ukrainian airspace, citing the attack of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 in 2014, when Russian-backed rebels shot down a plane and killed nearly 300 people. Here in the U.S., a Rhode Island priest is showing solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Father Thomas O'Neill, a senior priest with the Diocese of Providence, has embarked on a pilgrimage of prayer, riding his bike to churches in the diocese and offering prayers of peace for Ukraine. Father O'Neill says his decision to support the people of Ukraine is not just geopolitics at work, but also Catholic social teachings. The ongoing protests in Canada against COVID restrictions have disrupted international trade by bottlenecking routes. Now, as one big protest winds down, others are ramping up. Amy Kiley has a look at how the demonstrations in Canada are rippling across the U.S.
Protests against COVID-19 measures could still threaten trade between the U.S. and Canada. That's even after a police crackdown in Windsor, Canada, cleared the Ambassador Bridge into Detroit.
Any unlawful activity in the area will not be tolerated, and officers will take the necessary action to keep the peace and traffic flowing. There will be criminal consequences for those who interfere with or interrupt traffic flow.
That's a relief for Michigan auto industry workers. They're out tens of millions of dollars after truckers shut down the bridge for days, blocking supplies and idling plants. Now, that convoy is inspiring other demonstrations. CTV reports at the Washington state border, police are trying to keep the area clear. That's after large vehicles broke through a police barricade over the weekend and hundreds gathered to protest.
We're peaceful. We're Canadians. And let me tell you, the world's giving us a bear hug right now.
Here along the border with Montana, demonstrators have been clogging traffic with farm equipment. Near North Dakota, they've endured harsh weather. Trade between the U.S. and Canada is hundreds of billions of dollars yearly, so these demonstrations can limit what goes in your shopping cart. And these protests are inspiring ones in the U.S., like we saw in Buffalo, New York, and Boulder, Colorado over the weekend.
Today is about protesting the remaining mandates before they continue on down the slippery slope.
Hey, hey, ho, ho! I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
The Canadian convoy also disrupted church services in the country's capital on Sunday. St. Patrick's Basilica Parish in downtown Ottawa is open again, but canceled all 5 masses this past weekend after church officials described, quote, ugly incidents during the first weekend of the protests. The Archbishop of Ottawa, Cornwall, describing the protests as complicated and called for patience, saying, we need to be patient with one another, really listening to each other's experience, fear, anxieties, and hopes, praying with and for each other, asking for healing, strength, and hope from God as we move together through this challenging time. In the United States, President Biden is weighing in on the growing frustration with pandemic restrictions. While some governors are lifting mandates, the president suggested that lifting measures too soon was, quote, probably premature. But he did acknowledge it was a tough call. Governor Hochul lifted New York's indoor mask mandate for businesses on Thursday. There's a lot more news headed your way. Valentine's Day is a celebration of love, but how much do you know about the saint who inspired the holiday? Then get ready to dig even deeper into your wallet. Gas prices are soaring and there's no end in sight. And an Indiana man is alive today because of a sign he held up at a football game. We'll have the incredible story coming up. It's Valentine's Day, and while you might remember the flowers or chocolate, don't forget the person this day is named after. Saint Valentine is the reason why people celebrate love on February 14th. According to the church, the saint is among those early Christians who suffered martyrdom during widespread Roman persecutions. He's honored as a patron to whom couples can pray, seeking intercession for happy marriages. But there are apparently 3 or more Christian martyrs named Valentine listed in church records. So for more on the mystery about St. Valentine, pick up this week's Tablet, the paper spreading some love this week with other stories on successful marriages and a sharp rise in church weddings. Find the paper at your church or subscribe at thetablet.org to get it delivered at home. Meanwhile, businesses are feeling the love this Valentine's Day. Despite the increase in prices for just about everything across the U.S., people are expected to spend nearly $24 billion on gifts this year. According to the National Retail Federation, that's up from nearly $22 billion last year. As usual, candy, greeting cards, and flowers in that order top the list of most popular Valentine's Day gift items this year. But one of the best gifts you can give on Valentine's Day is the gift of life. February 14th is also National Organ Donor Day, and the need is great. According to U.S. health officials, more than 100,000 American men, women, and children are waiting for life-saving organs. But the need isn't just for organs like kidneys, livers, and hearts. Donating 1 pint of blood can save 3 lives. An Indiana man knows the importance of organ donation. A few years ago, Marcus Edwards needed a life-saving kidney transplant when he came up with a creative idea to find a donor. He held up a sign at a Chicago Bears game in 2019, which started a chain of events that led him to his donor.
There was a complete stranger 15 minutes from me that just saved my life. You know, it was incredible.
Marcus and Jennifer met in October of 2021, 2 days after she gave him her kidney. They now consider each other family. In New York, nearly 9,000 people are waiting for that life-saving organ transplant. If you have the power to donate life, you can enroll online at donatelife.ny.gov. The pain at the pump is getting worse. Gas prices are on the rise again as demand outpaces supply. And experts say it's a problem that could get worse before it gets better. Gabe Cohen explains.
Add gas prices to the list of surging costs weighing on Americans' wallets.
The price has been a little bit more each time.
The national average now around $3.44 a gallon, up more than $1 from a year ago, and the highest since 2014.
It's just like, damn, like it changes the way I pump gas.
And it's only getting worse, approaching the record national average of $4.11.
Do you think we could hit that record in the months ahead?
I think we have a very good chance.
It's an issue of supply and demand dating back to the start of COVID. Just look at this roller coaster chart of U.S. gas prices over time. In March 2020, prices plummeted. Americans weren't on the road. Oil producers, including OPEC, cut back on investments and operations. They had nowhere to store extra oil.
They laid off employees. They didn't work their rigs.
But when the vaccines rolled out, demand for fuel skyrocketed, more than experts expected, and the oil industry didn't have the supply. They're still playing catch up.
You can't just turn on a spigot. These are long cycle projects.
So gas prices have been surging for 14 months, only briefly dipping during Omicron. Demand is back at pre-pandemic levels. Even AAA can't explain that.
They're trying to kind of figure it out right now.
And the conflict on the Ukrainian border is adding a new strain. Russia is the world's second largest oil producer. If the crisis escalates, JP Morgan says oil prices could soar from $91 a barrel to $120.
If we were to see Russia potentially withhold energy exports, the question would be who could make up for that?
I'm going to work like the devil to bring gas prices down.
It's a huge political problem for the Biden administration, which says it's now engaging with oil-producing countries to increase production, preparing to go after firms that manipulate prices, and considering dipping back into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. In November, they announced the release of 50 million barrels from that supply.
It resulted in very little, more like negligible impact.
At this price point, you'll start to see more production come back, but there's still a gap that needs to be filled.
One source of hope, new talks with Iran over a nuclear deal. If that gets done, Western companies could start buying more Iranian oil. But as of now, oil prices are expected to keep rising for months, adding fuel to inflation on everything from groceries to store goods, and driving price hikes at the pump.
It's not just my car, it's every single aspect of my life is impacted by gas prices.
That was Gabe Cohen reporting. As the markets opened Monday, Brent crude oil from the North Sea was trading at more than $94 a barrel. It started the year at $78 a barrel, a sign that Europe is worried a Russian invasion of Ukraine could disrupt the oil supply. There's sticker shock on the car lot, too. Prices soaring for both new and used cars. New data shows the average price for used cars and trucks jumped by 40.5% from January 2021 to January of this year. New vehicle purchases are up around 12%. The computer chip shortage is one reason that's making travel all around more expensive, with air, bus, and train travel all up by almost 6%. But despite the increase in travel costs, the Archbishop of Toledo says pilgrimages to Spain aren't slowing down. The news comes as Pope Francis extended the Jubilee year of Guadalupe, which initially kicked off in Toledo during the pandemic in 2020. But thanks to the Holy Father, the Jubilee will be celebrated until next September, giving many pilgrims the opportunity to show their devotion.
Many people take advantage of that pilgrimage to go to confession, to receive the Lord through communion, and to celebrate the Jubilee with the Eucharist. It's a very joyful and fruitful experience. I thank the Pope for extending the Jubilee of Guadalupe. It was a blessing from God for the entire Archdiocese of Toledo, for Extremadura, and all of Spain.
The first Jubilee year of Guadalupe was established by Pope Paul III in 1536. Archbishop Cerro hopes this extension will re-energize the Archdiocese. Extending a Jubilee isn't the only change Pope Francis is making. His Holiness is also restructuring the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith. It's the oldest of the congregations and was once comprised of a doctrinal, discipline, and a marriage office. Now the doctrinal and discipline offices will become their own special sections led by their own secretaries. Pope Francis says the decision will allow the two offices to better focus on preserving the faith. And still to come on Currents News. Sister Mary's beloved Bengals could not pull out a victory, but they did get close. She's keeping the faith and already looking towards next year. Plus,
the Pope was always saying every year, "Thank you a lot for the flowers. Dank u voor de bloemen." And that is a tradition in the Netherlands.
a tradition that was put on hold because of the pandemic, but now it's back and as colorful as ever. We'll explain in just a minute. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. As we now know, there was no divine intervention for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals lost to the Los Angeles Rams during the Super Bowl Sunday, and one of their biggest fans, Sister Mary Mediatrix at the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity in the Diocese of Corpus Christi, was crushed. We spoke with Sister Mary last week. She said she was praying for a win, but after a pre-game prayer using Bengals-inspired rosaries and even calling on the angels for help, Sister Mary's team couldn't pull off the win. But she'll keep the faith. There's always next year. Same goes for Archbishop Dennis Schnurr of Cincinnati. He had to pay up in the form of sweets after a friendly wager with Archbishop Jose Gomez of Los Angeles. Since the Bengals lost, Archbishop Schnurr had to send a crate of Graeter's ice cream to the City of Angels. Both archbishops also donated $1,000 each to the Catholic Education Fund. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles will now receive 60% of the pot. And there's still time for you to donate. Just go to bishopsbiggame.org and click Give Today in the upper right-hand corner. Your donation will be made in the name of the team you rooted for. An annual donation of flowers from the Netherlands to the Vatican during Easter came to an end during the pandemic. But now, Dutch people of all faiths are coming together to bring this tradition back. Easter in the Vatican is a joyful celebration like nowhere else. And since 1985, the Pope's Easter Urbi et Orbi blessing has been brought to life by the vivid colors of Dutch flowers decorating St. Peter's Square.
Un pensiero particolare e riconoscente per il dono dei bellissimi fiori che provengono dai Paesi Bassi.
The Pope was always saying every year, "Thank you a lot for the flowers. Dank u voor de bloemen." And that is a tradition in the Netherlands.
That was until 2020, when the donors who supply the flowers backed out because of the pandemic, and Pope Francis celebrated Easter Mass inside an empty St. Peter's Basilica. Father Antoine Baudard is rector of the Church for Dutch Pilgrims traveling to Rome, and he says that Dutch people of all faiths are banding together to carry on the tradition.
So we have said, okay, if it is not possible any longer, we have the responsibility and we will further on give the flowers to the Pope.
The number of Dutch pilgrims in Rome has fallen dramatically since the start of the pandemic, and with them, donations. That means there could be less flowers surrounding Pope Francis on Easter, but Father Baudard says the important thing is having a Dutch presence at one of the church's most important celebrations.
And we are hoping that further on, after COVID, we can give more flowers, but we will give flowers.
Catholics everywhere are hoping this will be the year Pope Francis will once again deliver his Easter blessing to the world from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. And the Netherlands is on a mission to make sure he does so with Dutch flowers alongside him. The flowers you can expect to see in St. Peter's Square are tulips, of course, daffodils, and even some out-of-season roses. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.